Hello friends, today we are gonna deep dive into JSON Web Token. What's the JWT, why we should use it, cons, pros, and how to implement it using Node.js. And after that, you are gonna learn how to make it more secure using refresh token, and finally, how to implement it on the client side. If you are ready, let's get started. When you create an application, one of the most important things is handling authentication and authorization. So imagine in your application, users can create a post and after that they can edit or delete them. But the crucial thing is authorization here, because they should be able to delete only their posts. When they attempt to delete other users' posts, we should respond to them with an error and say, hey, it doesn't belong to you, so you are not allowed to delete it. It sounds pretty easy, right? We can easily handle that. When we make an API request, we can check the username or ID and post's username and ID, and if they are equal, we can give them access. Well, unfortunately, it's a utopian idea that because Word has many people with bad intentions, once they know your user ID or name, they can easily manipulate the API request and attempt to delete or change your post or account. So let's check our last project. Okay, this is our full stack blog application. You can reach it by clicking card on the top right. Okay, let's log in. I will write here my username and password. We are storing all informations about us in the local storage. Let's open it. Application, local storage, and this is our information. And I'm going to my post. And as you can see, there is a delete button because it's my post. But if I go to another post, for example this one, we can't see this delete button because it checks the username of this post and it checks my username here. If they don't match, I can see this delete button. Okay, right now I can delete my post. I will click this, but it's gonna redirect us to homepage. But I just commented out this functionality that because I want to show you something here. As you can see, we have some requests. And this is our delete request. I'm gonna click, and here let's make this bigger. Post has been deleted. If I go to the home page, let's open in the new tab. As you can see, there are only 2 other posts. Okay. Right now, I'm gonna click these headers. The request URL, I attempt to delete this post using delete method. And my payload here, I sent my username. Let's check out our API. This is our delete method. As you can see, first we find this post in the DB, and then there's a condition here. If post username equals the username we sent here, if they are equal, it deletes this post. If they are not, it warns us you can delete only your post. Everything looks really nice. If I try to delete another post, for example, belongs to Anna, post username will be Anna and my username will be John, and it's gonna fail and send this error. And right now, I'm gonna use my hacker instinct and think. Okay, this application checks the username, that's why I can't delete Anna's post. Let's go to the Anna's post. So if I change the username inside the storage, in the application and local storage, so let's change this username, ID and username. I'm gonna change this, Anna, and let's refresh the page. And tada! I'm clicking delete button and rest in peace. Let's go to the home page. As you can see, we deleted that post. And I don't even know her password, her email or anything, but I'm able to delete her post. Not only post, I can delete her account or update it or whatever, and it's a huge problem. You might say, okay, let's don't store it inside the local storage, but the problem is not storage here. We have to store some information here, so the user doesn't have to log in again and again for any process. The problem is our API. You should never check your authorization like that. And don't worry about the last projects, by the way. It's really easy to convert them by using JWT. After this tutorial, you can go to the previous projects and change them with JWT Authentication, and you can make them more secure. So I didn't implement JWT Authentication for the last projects because it could be a little bit confusing for beginners, but now you already know how an API works, how to create a backend server, how to handle post, get, delete or any other operations. So it's gonna be much more easier right now. And if you are a new visitor, if you've never seen this channel or watched previous projects, don't worry, it's an independent video, we are not gonna work on them. Okay, if you understood the problem, let's get started with the solution. The first one is the session-based solution. In this case, when you log in using your credentials, it's gonna go to the API, and if the credentials are valid, it's gonna create a session and store it inside your server and give you a cookie that includes your session ID. So whenever you attempt to reach a private endpoint, for example, update the user or delete the post or whatever, you are gonna send this cookie to server, and it's gonna check whether the information matches with the session in the memory or not. If everything is okay, you will be able to reach the API. And don't forget, we are storing our session in the server. And here is our solution, JWT. It stands for JSON Web Token. Basically, when you log in with your credentials, it's gonna create a secret token that nobody can create and send you without storing it anywhere. When you try to delete your account, you should provide this token in the header of your request, and the server decodes and checks this token and decides whether the token is valid or not. So let's check it in the JWT website. As you can see, we have an encoded JSON Web Token here. Essentially, it consists of three parts. The first one is the header part. It includes our hashing algorithm. There are many algorithms you can choose, but it really doesn't matter. They all are really strong. The only difference is the way of hashing. And the second part is the payload part. It includes our ID and any given payload here. You can provide your user ID, username, email, whatever you want. And this is issued at date. It shows when this token has been created. Also, you can add an expiration date, which is EXP. Let's say 1 day, and after 1 day, this token will be invalid. And finally, we have a signature that includes our encoded script key. You can write here any script key you want. Of course, it's not gonna be that easy and short, and when you change any of these, it's gonna be invalid. So why we are using JWT instead of sessions? Firstly, as I said, we store the session on the server, and each time a user login, we should store a new one. But the major problem is this session belongs to that server. Nowadays, every application includes at least a couple of microservices. Remember our social media application? We have an API server and chat server. So imagine you have an e-commerce web application. You want to separate servers. Maybe you have a normal shopping application and help desk application, and maybe users can communicate with each other inside a forum application. So all of these servers are independent. Thanks to JWT, it's really easy to share token between different apps. In this case, they all can use just one token and authorize your actions. So in a nutshell, JWT is awesome and I highly recommend you to use it. Well, how we are gonna use it in our Node.js application? Let's get started. Okay, as you can see, we have two folders here, client and API. They are empty for now. We have just index file here and package.json. We are gonna create our application first. So let's create our Express server. I will say const Express, and it's gonna require Express. So I should create application. I'm gonna say const app, and it's gonna call Express function. Okay. So I should listen any port to run our application. So I will say app listen and port number, let's say 5000, and call back here. I'm gonna just console log my connection. Let's say backend server is running. Okay, let's try. I'm gonna start my application, npm start. Perfect, it's working. So what I'm gonna do right now, before creating any login or delayed routes, I'm gonna create some fake users here. I will say const users. I'm not gonna create database, I'm just gonna use my server memory here. It's gonna be easier, I think. We are not gonna waste time. So let's say ID is gonna be 1. And username, I will say John. And password, let's say John0908. I'm doing this because I don't want to see any your password is too weak error on the browser. So finally I will say is admin, and he's gonna be admin. Okay, so I can create one more. It's gonna be ID2 and Jane, and she's not gonna be admin, false. Okay, this is our users DB. So after login process, for example, if you try to delete any user, John will be able to delete any of them because he is an admin, and Jane just can delete her own account. Okay, let's create our login route here. I will say app post request, and if you don't feel confident about REST APIs, you can watch my social media application or blog application using Node.js and Express. If you already know, it's gonna be easier, I think. I will say API and login. This is gonna be our route, and after that I'm gonna take request and response, and we are gonna take username and password from user. I will say const username and password. It's gonna be coming from request and body. So what's this request and body? I'm gonna open here Postman, and here I'm gonna write my route, and it's gonna be localhost 5000 API and login. Okay, so how I'm gonna send my username and password? I'm gonna write here, make sure using row here and JSON here, and after that I'm gonna write my username. It's gonna be John, and password. What was that? John0908. So basically this is our body, and we are gonna send our credentials. Okay, to use this body JSON file, I should use one more thing. I'm gonna come here and say app use, and I'm gonna use express and JSON. If you don't use this function, you cannot send anything inside body. So it's really important, don't forget this. After that, let's comment this out for now and send something to client side, which is our Postman for now. So I'm gonna say response and JSON, hey, it works. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna send, hey, it works, perfect. So I can take this username and password here. Let's delete this and open here. Okay, so what I will do is finding this username and password inside our users array. Oops, password here. Okay, So let's find this user. I will say const user. It's gonna be users array, and I will say find any user inside this array, and I will say return if user and username equals my username. Of course, it's a condition, and also user.password should be equal my password. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna say if there is a user, if we find this user, let's send this user. Otherwise, if there is no user, I'm gonna say response status is gonna be error. So I'm gonna say 400 JSON and username or password incorrect. Okay, let's see. I will send. Okay, John is here. I will make some mistake here. Okay, perfect. Right now I can use JWT. So I'm gonna come here and open new tab. And I'm gonna go to my API. And here I will say npm install and JSON web token. Let's use our JSON web token. So I'm gonna come here and const, let's say JWT, and it's gonna require our JSON web token. Okay, right now I can create any token. Let's come here. If there is user, we are not gonna send. Instead, I will say, let's write here comment generate and access token. So I'm gonna say const access token. I will use this JWT to create a token. Only thing you should say is sign. And after that, I'm gonna give my payload. It's gonna be ID and user.id. And one more thing I'm gonna send. It's gonna be isAdmin. It's gonna be user.isAdmin. Okay, I sent my payload. One more thing I need, and it's my secret key. I will say my secret key. Of course, it's a terrible secret key. You should create here env file and create really long key and use this. But for now, it's totally okay. Right now, I can send my user. I will say response JSON. I'm gonna send my username, user.username is admin. And finally, I will send my access token. Okay, let's see. I will come here and log in. As you can see, username is admin, and this is our access token. Let's copy this and come here. In the JWT website, I'm gonna paste this here. As you can see, this is our payload. ID is admin, and this is issued at which we created this JWT, and this is our algorithm. Okay, perfect. I can close here. We send ID and is admin. You can send your username or any additional information. When we create the delete route, we are gonna check user ID and is admin property here, and then we are gonna decide whether the user can delete account or not. Okay, so right now what I'm gonna do is using this URL API users, and it's gonna be our user ID. This is John and this is Jane, and it's gonna be delete method, and we are gonna just send our web token which we created in the login process, and it's gonna check token. It's gonna verify. If it's valid, we will be able to delete our account. If it's not, it's gonna send an error. So let's do that. I'm gonna create verify function here, request, response, and additionally it's gonna be next. So everything will continue after this callback function. You will understand better right now. What I should do is taking my token. We are gonna write our token. It's gonna take this token, but this is not body. It's gonna be our header. Actually, if I write here, you can understand better, I think. This is gonna be our key. You can write here whatever you want, and its value will be our JSON Web Token. So I'm gonna write here authorization, and I'm gonna say const auth header. It's gonna be request headers and authorization. So basically it's gonna check these headers and find this authorization key and take its value. So what's our value? It's gonna be our access token here. I will copy and paste here. But before pasting, I'm gonna write here bearer and then one space and after JSON Web Token. Okay, let's write here a condition. I will say if there is auth header, if there is a token, it's gonna do something here. So if there is not token, it means we are not authenticated. So we can send any error. I will say else. I'm gonna say response and status will be 401, which is not authenticated. So I will say you are not authenticated. If there is a token, I'm gonna define this token, const token, because we used here bearer and our actual token. I don't need this part. If I split this text according to space, we are gonna have just bearer text and our actual token, and we are gonna take this second part. Okay, let's do that. Auth header, and I'm gonna split this using space, and I'm gonna take second part because first one is our part 0 and second one is part 1. So it's gonna choose our actual token. So let's verify this token. How I'm gonna verify is writing here JWT and verify, and I'm gonna send this token. It's gonna use this secret key. It's really important. If you don't send this secret key, it can't compare. So let's write here, and after I'm gonna write here a callback function. First one will be our error and second one will be user. It doesn't have to be user. You can say payload or data or whatever you want. Basically, it just contains our payload here. ID and is admin. So we are gonna use this user. Okay. I will say if there is an error, return response status. It's gonna be 401 and JSON token is not valid. Actually, it's not 401 because we have token, but it's not valid. So it's gonna be forbidden. It's gonna say, okay, I see you have a token, but I'm sorry, something wrong. Maybe your secret key here, or maybe it's expired. I don't know, but it's not valid. So you cannot reach the data. Okay. So if everything is okay, if there is no error, I can use this user right now. So I'm gonna assign this user to request user. And after that, I'm gonna say next. Right now, if we create any root here, let's say app and delete request, it's gonna be again API and users URL. And here I'm gonna give a parameter. It's gonna be user ID, like we did here. API users and user ID. And right now I can use this verify function. This is our middleware, so I can use this here, verify, and after that request and response. So right now you can understand this next better. Basically, when we call this URL, when we make any request, before taking this request and response and make any process inside this function, it's gonna go to verify function here. And middlewares are able to reach our response and request. For example, we wrote here user ID, it's in the request. So which means this verify function can reach this data. So it's gonna look our headers, take the token and verify it. If there is an error, it's gonna send this error. If everything is okay, it's gonna assign this payload and then we are gonna use next, and after this next function we are gonna turn back here. Okay, I finished my process, let's continue. And after that it's gonna take this request and response. We can check this user, our payload, and if the user is admin or its user ID equals this user ID, we can delete the account. So let's do that. I will say request and user and ID if it's equal this parameter, request params and user ID, or if request and user is admin, we can delete the account. I will say response status is gonna be 200 successful, and JSON user has been deleted. So if this user doesn't belong to us, or if we are not admin, we are not allowed to delete this user. So I will say as response status is gonna be 403, and JSON, you are not allowed to delete this user. Okay, let's see. Let's check here again. We logged in, and remember John is admin here, and we are gonna use this token, bearer token. Let's send. User has been deleted, and also we are allowed to delete Jane's account. I will send. As you can see, user has been deleted. So if I log in here as Jane, I will log in. As you can see, we are not admin. I will copy this and come here. I will change this bearer token. I will paste, and right now I can delete my account. Perfect. But I'm not allowed to delete any other user's accounts. You are not allowed to delete this user. Perfect. So if I delete this token, let's see, we don't have any token. And 401, you are not authenticated. If we have a token, but it's not correct, I will send, and it says, okay, you have a token, but it's not valid, and it's forbidden. Perfect. It works like that. So obviously our application is more secure, but there is a problem. This token doesn't have any expiration date, so it just takes forever. Just imagine someone steals your token here, and it means he is able to delete your posts, your account, anything inside your application, that because he has your secret token here. So how we are gonna add expiration date? When we create a access token here, I can add my expiration date here. I will say expires in, and let's say 20 seconds, and let's see again. I will log in. This is my access token, and here I'm gonna change this token, and this is my ID. Let's see. As you can see, user has been deleted, and I keep doing this, and finally token is not valid because it's expired. So it's more secure, but it comes with another problem. That because when we use an application after login process, we have to log in again and again in every 20 seconds. So it doesn't make sense. To avoid this issue, we can use refresh token. We are gonna have access token and refresh token. When we log in, access token will be expired in any, let's say, 15 minutes. And when it expires, we are gonna automatically call our refresh token, and it's gonna regenerate access token and give us. It's that simple. Let's create actually. Here after users, I can do this. I'm gonna use another post request. I will say app post, and I'm gonna say API, and let's say refresh. And when we call this URL, when we make request with our refresh token, it's gonna regenerate our token, and after 15 minutes we are gonna refresh again and again and again. Perfect. So I will say request and response. And firstly, it's gonna take token from user. Let's say the refresh token from the user. And after that, I will say send error if there is no token or if this token is not valid, or it's invalid. And after that, if everything is okay, create new access token. By the way, you can just create access token or you can create refresh token also. It totally depends on you. Let's create refresh also actually. Token and send to user. Let's take our refresh token from user. I will say const token. It's gonna be request and body and token. So basically, when I refresh our token, I'm gonna go to body and here I'm gonna pass my token and it's gonna be my refresh token. And after that, let's check if there's an error or not. I will say if there is no refresh token. Actually, let's write here refresh token. Otherwise it can be confusing. So I will say if there is no refresh token, return response and status 401 and you are not authenticated. So how I'm gonna check whether this refresh token is invalid or not? So we should store this refresh token anywhere. You can use any database or Redis cache, but we are not gonna create them. I don't wanna waste time. I'm just gonna create an array here. I'll say let refresh tokens. It's gonna be empty array, and when I create a refresh token, I'm gonna push it inside this array. And after logout process, we are gonna delete this token, or if you have access tokens stolen, you can just log out and delete all refresh tokens, and he will be not able to reach your account again. So, by the way, after login process, we didn't create any refresh token. Let's create. I will copy this actually. It should be access, by the way. And it's gonna be refresh token. And it's gonna send user ID and admin again. And right now I can change this secret key. I'll say my refresh secret key. Doesn't matter. Actually, I can create independent functions. Let's do that. I will say const generate access token. And it's gonna take user as parameter, and it's gonna be, let's copy this and paste here. It's exactly the same thing. So instead of this, I'm just gonna call my function. I will say generate access token, and I'm gonna pass my user. So I can do the same thing for refresh token. Generate refresh token. Right now I can delete this and create here another function, generate refresh token, and this time, oops, it should be JWT sign. And here also. So let's check everything is okay here or not. Okay, it looks nice. And here I'm gonna change my secret key, refresh secret key, and it doesn't include any expire scene. Of course, I should return them. So they're gonna generate tokens and return them here, for example. And we are gonna use this access token. Let's copy this and here const access token is gonna equal the token which we sent here. Okay. And as I said, when I create refresh token, I'm gonna add this inside our empty array here, refresh tokens. Let's do that. I can add this here or here, doesn't matter. Let's add this here, const refresh token. And I'm gonna say refresh tokens, and I will say push refresh token. After generating token, automatically we are gonna push inside our array. Okay, so let's look at our refresh route here. If it's not inside our array or DB, we are gonna send another error. I will say if refresh tokens array doesn't include this token, we are gonna return another error. Response status is gonna be 403, and I will say JSON refresh token is not valid. So if it's valid, let's validate this refresh token. I will say JWT and verify. Remember what we are doing. I'm gonna take this refresh token and write my secret key. What was my secret key here? Refresh. Okay. And after validation, it's gonna be callback again, error and user. If there's an error, just console log this. If everything is okay, we are gonna invalidate this token and create new one. New refresh token and access token. What I mean by invalidate, I'm just gonna delete inside this refresh tokens array. I will say refresh tokens, and I'm gonna just filter this. It's gonna take every token, and if this token is not our refresh token, they will stay. If it equals, it's gonna delete from this array. Okay. Right now I can create new ones. I will say const access token. Actually, let's say new access token. It's gonna be generate access token, and I'm gonna pass my user, which came from inside our refresh token. This is our payload, remember? And after that, I will say new refresh token. By the way, as I said before, you don't have to create new refresh token, but I want my application more secure, so I'm gonna refresh this token also. So right now, I can push my new refresh token inside my array. I will say refresh tokens and push and new refresh token. And finally, I can send this as response. I will say JSON, let's say 200 first. And inside JSON file, I'm gonna pass my new access token and new refresh token. I will say access token equals new access token and refresh token equals new refresh token. That's all. Let's see. Okay, I need refresh token. Did we send when we log in? Let's check here. No, we didn't. Let's write here refresh token. I will save and log in again. Okay, there are two tokens. And when I copy this and come here, when I try to refresh, I will send, and perfect. New access and refresh token. I tried to send again, and as you can see, there is an error because it's not valid anymore. We deleted this from our array and created new one. Let's log in again and see. I will copy this and paste here. So right now, whenever I want to change this refresh and access token, I should copy this and paste here. As you can see, it works perfectly. Let's try deleting user, but before I'm gonna just decrease this time. It's not gonna be 15 minutes, it's gonna be 30 seconds. I will save and log in again. I will copy this access token and try to delete my account, and this is my access token. Let's try. As you can see, I can delete for now, but after 30 seconds I will not be able to delete it, and after that I'm gonna refresh my token and take new access token, and after that I can delete my user. Let's take this refresh token and paste here. I'm gonna regenerate my tokens, but before, let's try. I think we ran out our 30 seconds. Let's try. As you can see, token is not valid. If I refresh and take new one, let's paste here. After that, as you can see, we can again delete. Perfect. So in this case, even you got your tokens stolen, they're gonna have just, let's say, 15 minutes. They have to refresh it and generate new one. And if you see any suspicious activity, you can just delete this refresh token inside DB or array, and no one will be able to reach your data. Let's do that. I will say logout. After this login, I can say app and post method. It's gonna be API and logout, and I will say verify because we have to be authenticated. And after that, I will say request response, and I'm gonna take my refresh token inside body and delete it from my DB. So I will say const refresh token. It's gonna be request body and token, and after that refresh tokens, and let's filter it. Refresh tokens and filter if token is not equal this refresh token, and finally we can send response to 100 and JSON. I will say you logged out successfully. Let's try. Oops, something is wrong here. Okay, verify is under our function. Let's move it. After delete, actually it can be. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna log in one more time. This is my access token. I can delete my user. It's gonna expire after 30 seconds. And I can refresh my tokens again. And finally, I can log out. And inside body, I'm gonna pass my token, and it's gonna be my refresh token. Let's take it from here. But before logout, let's try to refresh new one. I will write here my refresh token and send. As you can see, I can create new ones. And this is my new refresh token. If I write this here and send, it's gonna refresh again. But before this, I'm gonna log out and let's see what's gonna happen. You are not authenticated. Okay, that's because we didn't send our access token. Because remember, we are using here verify. Let's take this new access token and paste here. Authorization, it's not capital letter. Okay, I will write here bearer and my token. Let's send again. Okay, it's token, and we are taking this token from body. Everything looks okay. Okay, I forgot here writing my arrow function. Let's try again. I will send. You logged out successfully. And if I try to refresh again, remember this is our new refresh token. I will send. As you can see, refresh token is not valid and no one can reach this data. Perfect. I hope it makes sense. So that's all for now for API side. Let's come here and see how we can use this inside our client side. Okay, I created a React application. This is our app.js and this is our application. Basically, we are gonna just enter our username and password and it's gonna be our login operation. And here, as you can see, we have username, password. If there is an error, we are gonna set this true. If everything is okay, we are gonna set success true. And this is our handle submit function. Right now, I can create my API request here. And if you go to package.json, I set this proxy as my localhost 5000 API. So we are going to use this URL. Okay. So let's use Axios. I will say const response. This request is going to return us a response. I will say Axios. Of course, it's async function, so we will await this. And I'm going to say post. Remember our URL, it was API and login. And after that, I'm gonna pass my data. Let's remember here actually, my index file. And where is our login? Okay, here. So we are sending username and password inside body. And it's gonna return us our refresh token, access token, username, and is admin. Let's do that. I'm gonna send my username and password. Let's check here. As you can see, we have two inputs here. When we change this first input, it's gonna set our username, and this is gonna set our password. Okay. So after returning response, I can set my user here. I will say set user, it's gonna be response and data. And we are gonna have another div here and it's gonna show us two buttons and we are gonna see this after setting user data. Let's see. I will write here John and John and I'm gonna log in. As you can see, this is our dashboard. Welcome to the admin dashboard. These are our options. I can delete John or Jane. Let's refresh. We are not gonna store this anywhere. Let's log in as Jane. As you can see, this is user dashboard. That's because we have a condition here. If user admin is gonna write admin. If it's not, it's gonna be user. Okay, so how we are gonna delete them? As you can see, we have two click event here. Both are calling our handle delete function and it's gonna pass user ID, which is John's ID, and this is Jane's ID. Okay, let's look at this handle delete function. It's taking this user ID and we have a try catch block. Let's complete our API request. I will say await Axios and our method is delete and our URL is, let's check here, API users and user ID parameter. Let's do that. I will say users and my user ID, which is here as prop. So I can say plus ID. So this is our URL. So what should I send more? Let's come here. As you can see, we have to verify our request, which means we should send our access token. To do that, I should assign here headers property. So I will say headers. So we are gonna do exactly the same thing we did here inside Postman. Let's come here, delete users. This is our headers and this is our key and value. So I'm gonna set this key. And bearer, and after that one space and my access token, which is user.access token. Okay, I will save and come to the browser. I'm gonna delete Jane. As you can see, user has been deleted successfully. But if I attempt to delete John, you are not allowed to delete this user. That's because it's not our account and we are not an admin. So let's log in as John. I'm gonna try to delete John. User has been deleted. And Jane. As you can see, we can delete Jane also. Perfect. So sending access token is that easy. I think you understood here. But what about our refresh token? So I'm gonna create refresh token function here. I will say const refresh token. And this function will be async because we are gonna make request, and arrow function, and inside I'm gonna write my try catch block. Error. In case of any error, I will just console log this. And let's come here. I'm gonna create API request. It's gonna be response and await Axios. Let's remember our refresh token root here. Okay, we are passing our refresh token inside token variable. Let's do that. I will say post method and refresh. I will say my token is gonna be user.refresh token. And if there is no error, it's gonna return us this response and we can update our user. I will say set user. Everything will be the same. Username, ID, and whatever. We are just gonna change refresh token and access token. I will say access token is gonna be response and data and access token. And one more. This is gonna be refresh token. Okay, right now we are able to refresh our tokens, but how we are gonna do this automatically? Because remember, our token here expires in 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, we need to refresh it. But we cannot create here any button and say your token is expired, please click the button to refresh your token. We can't do this for user experience. So what I will do is using Axios interceptors. I will say Axios and interceptors, and I'm gonna use request method. And if I say use, it's gonna do something before every request. So if you write here response, for example, it's gonna run after turning a response. So right now, before sending any request, we can check our expiration date. If our access token is expired, we can just call this function and we can refresh our tokens and send request with new access token. I know it can be confusing if you don't know anything about interceptors, but it really makes sense. You will understand better after giving this example. So what I'm gonna change here before making request, I'm gonna change my header here. To do that, I should change my config because config includes our headers. So let's do that. I will say config. It's gonna be async function. And I'm gonna create a current date. I will say current date. And it's gonna be new date. And right now I should check my access token expiration date. how I'm gonna reach that data. I should decode my token to reach my expiration date. To do that, we are gonna use a library. Let's open here another terminal. I will go to my client side, cd client, and I'm gonna install a library, yarn add and JWT decode. Oops, I made a mistake. There should be space here. So let's call this library. I will say import JWT decode from JWT decode. Okay, let's use it. I will say const decoded token, and it's gonna be JWT decode and my access token. Let's see actually what we have here. I will copy this and just print the console. I will open my console, and here there is an object, and inside our user ID is admin and issued at an expiration time. So we need this variable here. Okay, so let's delete this, and here I can make my condition. I will say if decoded token and expiration date, and I'm gonna multiply this by 1000 and compare with our current date. I'll say current date, and I will get time. So basically we said if expiration time is smaller than current time, it means our token is expired and we should refresh it and get new one. Let's call this refresh token function, which we created here. And after that, it should return us our new access and refresh token, and we will be able to use this inside our config and headers. So I will write here return response and data. Remember, it returns us a new access token and refresh token, and I can use those tokens. I will say const data await refresh token function, and after that I'm gonna update my headers. I will say config and headers, and what's our header? Remember here authorization. I'm gonna use it, and my new value will be bearer and space and my new token. It's gonna be data.access token. Right now I can return my token. Right now I can return my config. And one more thing, it can be any error. If any error occurs, I should just reject my promise. Basically we say if there is an error, just cancel everything. I'm gonna say return promise.reject and error. Okay, let's try. To see this, of course, I should decrease this expiration date. It's not gonna be 15 minutes, it's gonna be just 5 seconds. And here, let's comment this out first and see. And let's run our application again. I will say John. I'm gonna delete John. As you can see, it's successful. I'm gonna delete again. You are not allowed to delete this user that because your access token has been expired. Perfect. So if I open this, I have to refresh my application again, but there will be another problem here. That because this is our login API request, but actually we don't need to use any interceptors, we don't need to refresh token or check this token, that because we don't have any user yet. So what I will do is creating new Axios instance. You can create as many Axios instances as you want. For example, for authentication requests, for GET requests, that we don't need to use any JWT token. I'm gonna create another instance. So I will say const Axios, let's say JWT or Axios with authentication or whatever you say. And I'm gonna write axios.create. And that's all. So right now I don't have to use this common Axios instance. Instead of this, I'm gonna use my new instance. So I will copy this and paste here. So where I'm gonna use this, inside handle delete. It's not gonna be Axios, it's gonna be Axios JWT. But for login, we are not gonna use it. That's because we don't need to refresh any token or verify our identity. It's just a login process. Okay, let's save and refresh our application. Right now, I will log in again. John and my password. I'm clicking, delete it. After 5 seconds, I'm clicking again. As you can see, it's still successful. That's because we refreshed our access token again. I'm deleting, successful. Perfect. So whenever I make a request, it's gonna check our time, and if our token is expired, it's gonna refresh token and set our headers again. Perfect. So I will refresh page. Chain. I'm trying to delete chain. After 5 seconds. Perfect. If I try to delete John, we are not allowed. Awesome. I hope you understood how to implement JWT inside React application. By the way, it's not an only option. Some of people set response here instead of request, and they are sending request first. And when they get a response, they check their error code. And if it's expression error, they just call this refresh token function and set their headers again and send the request again. But in my opinion, this is the better option, that because before sending any request, we are checking this inside our client side. So it's the less expensive solution, I think. Okay, we finished this tutorial. In the next video, we are gonna keep doing our amazing projects. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel. If you learned something new today, please like the video. So I hope I will see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.